Dr. Elena Marquez stared at her computer screen, her coffee cooling beside her. The alert from NASA's Solar Dynamics Observatory was stark. A massive sunspot had erupted, unleashing a coronal mass ejection, CME, directly toward Earth. The estimated time of arrival? 48 hours. Elena's fingers flew across the keyboard as she drafted an urgent memo to government agencies, airlines, and hospitals.
Geomagnetic storm imminent. Potential impacts on power grids, satellites, and human health. Prepare accordingly.
She glanced at the live feed of the sun on her second monitor. The sunspot was a seething, dark blotch against the glowing surface. It looked almost alive, pulsing with energy. Elena felt a knot of dread in her stomach. This wasn't just another solar flare. This was a monster. The news broke worldwide. Historic solar storm expected to hit Earth tomorrow, read the headlines. Social media buzzed with a mix of excitement and anxiety. People posted memes about the northern lights, while others shared concerns about the end of the world. Elena spent the day fielding calls from journalists, policymakers, and concerned citizens. Yes, the storm could disrupt power grids, she explained patiently. Yes, it could affect your health. No, it's not the apocalypse. By evening, the first signs of the storm's approach appeared. Satellites detected a surge in solar wind particles. Elena's team worked late into the night, monitoring the data and updating their models. Elena was jolted awake by her phone. "Dr. Marquez, you need to see this," said her assistant, Sarah. Elena threw on a jacket and rushed to the observatory. The sky outside was alive with color, shimmering greens, purples, and reds. The northern lights, usually confined to the poles, were visible as far south as Mexico. But Elena had no time to admire the spectacle. The storm had arrived, and its effects were already being felt. Reports came in from Canada and Scandinavia. Power grids were experiencing surges. In some areas, lights flickered and transformers overheated. Utility companies scrambled to stabilize the systems, but the storm was relentless. GPS signals faltered and internet services slowed to a crawl. Airlines grounded flights or rerouted them to avoid increased radiation exposure at high altitudes. Elena's phone buzzed with messages from pilots and flight attendants complaining of headaches and nausea. Emergency rooms began filling up. Patients complained of heart palpitations, dizziness, and migraines. Elena reviewed the data streaming in from hospitals worldwide. The correlation was clear. Geomagnetic activity was spiking, and so were health issues. Calls to crisis hotlines surged. People reported anxiety, insomnia, and mood swings. Social media was flooded with posts about feeling off or unsettled. Elena knew this was another side effect of the storm, geomagnetic disturbances disrupting brain chemistry. The storm reached its peak. The northern lights were now visible in places like Florida and Spain, but the beauty of the phenomenon was overshadowed by its toll. Power outages spread, satellites went offline, and hospitals struggled to cope with the influx of patients. Elena worked around the clock, analyzing data and coordinating with researchers worldwide. She discovered that the storm's effects were uneven. Some people were barely affected, while others were incapacitated. She wondered if genetics played a role, but that was a question for another day. Elena's own health began to suffer. She felt a constant headache, her heart raced, and she couldn't shake a sense of unease. She knew it was the storm, but that didn't make it easier to bear. She took a moment to sit in her office, closing her eyes and focusing on her breathing. She had to stay strong for herself and for everyone counting on her. The storm began to wane. The sunspot rotated out of view, and the solar wind particles diminished. The northern lights faded, and the world slowly returned to normal, or at least a new normal. Elena reviewed the final data. The storm had been one of the most powerful in recorded history, but humanity had weathered it. Power grids were being restored, Satellites were coming back online, and hospitals were catching up with the backlog of patients. Alina held a press conference to summarize the storm's effects. This event has shown us how interconnected we are, not just with each other, but with the cosmos, she said. Space weather isn't just an astronomer's concern. It's a human concern. She outlined the steps needed to prepare for future storms: better early warning systems, improved infrastructure, and more research into the effects on human health. The room was silent as she spoke, the weight of her words sinking in. As Alina left the press conference, she felt a mix of exhaustion and hope. The storm had been a wake-up call, but it had also shown humanity's resilience. People had come together, sharing information, supporting each other, and adapting to the challenges. She looked up at the sky, now clear and calm. The sun was quiet, but Alina knew another storm would come. And when it did, humanity would be ready.